One sunny afternoon, I was lounging by the pool with a book in hand, soaking in the warmth of the summer sun. My daughter, Emily, was splashing around in the water, her laughter echoing through the backyard. As I glanced over at the house behind ours, I caught a glimpse of movement in the upstairs window. There he was, the guy from next door, barely hiding behind the curtain, secretively snapping pictures of Emily with his phone. I felt a sudden wave of unease, but when I confronted him later, he denied taking any pictures and insisted he was merely enjoying the view. I brushed it off, convincing myself I was being paranoid. Days passed and the uneasy feeling lingered. One evening, as we settled down for dinner, I happened to glance out the kitchen window. There he was again, the creepy neighbor, standing in the shadows, peering into our living room. Panic seized me as I rushed outside, but by the time I got there, he had disappeared into the night. I was growing increasingly concerned. I installed security cameras around the house, hoping to catch any suspicious activity. The tension escalated. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, our every move monitored by this mysterious neighbor. The incident left us on edge, constantly checking locks and drawing curtains. The footage revealed nothing out of the ordinary until one night when we spotted someone lurking by the windows, their face obscured by the darkness. But the worst was yet to come. Late one night, the house was shrouded in silence. Everyone was asleep except for me. Restlessness kept me awake, and as I wandered through the dimly lit hallway, I noticed a shadow moving on the wall. My heart pounded in my chest as I approached Emily's room, only to find the guy from next door attempting to pry open her window. The world seemed to freeze as I yelled, the intruder startled by my sudden outburst. He vanished into the night, leaving behind a lingering fear that now permeated every corner of our home. Enough was enough. We called the police, recounting the unsettling events that had unfolded over the past weeks. As we anxiously waited for their arrival, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were in a horror movie, the tension thick in the air. The police arrived, their stern expressions reflecting the seriousness of the situation. We provided them with every detail, from the photos taken by the pool to the chilling encounter by Emily's window. They assured us they would investigate thoroughly. It wasn't long before they returned, a look of disbelief on their faces. The guy from the house behind us had been hiding a dark secret. Upon searching his home, they discovered a room adorned with pictures of neighborhood children, including Emily. The walls were a chilling testament to his disturbing obsession. The police arrested him, and as he was led away in handcuffs, he shot us a cold, unapologetic stare. The gravity of the situation hit us very hard. Our seemingly normal neighborhood had harbored a predator. We lived in this sketchy neighborhood where the shadows seemed to have secrets, and our house was this tiny fortress against the unknown. It was just my mom, my siblings, and me that night. Dad's away on a business trip, and the clock was ticking towards midnight, so we were all in bed. Suddenly, bam! Someone starts pounding on our front door like they're trying to break it down. It's so loud, it's like a drum echoing through the entire house. Mom wakes up, disoriented, and heads to the front door. She asks who's there. No answer. Dead silence. Just the echo of her voice hanging in the air. She looks through the peephole. Nobody there. Mom, thinking it's maybe just some dumb kids playing a late-night prank, shrugs it off and heads back to bed. About 30 minutes later, the pounding starts again. This time it's more persistent, like the rhythm of someone desperate to get in. Mom's concern level rises, and she heads back to the door, peering through the side window to catch a glimpse of whoever's causing the ruckus. Nobody's there. It's like the darkness swallowed up the knocker. Now, my mom's not one to easily freak out, but even she's getting a bit spooked. She grabs my dad's double barrel, this big, intimidating thing that's usually hidden away, and positions herself in the living room. She turns off most of the lights. The house is plunged into darkness, and she waits, like a silent sentinel, ready for whatever is about to go down. The booming thuds return. Mom's posture speaks volumes. She's done tolerating it. She starts yelling, "I'm calling the cops, and if you try to break in, I'll shoot." The tension in the air is so thick you could cut it with a knife. It's 2 a.m. and finally the cavalry arrives in the form of flashing police lights. The relief is palpable, and they start searching around the house and the surrounding area. Then comes the bombshell. The cops find this ominous 4-foot piece of barbed wire right next to our front door. They ask my mom if it's ours. She's like, "No way, not ours." Turns out the person on the other side was planning to use it to strangle my mom when she opened the door. The cops commended my mom for not opening the door, saying it probably saved her life. They promised to patrol the neighborhood and dig deeper into the whole thing. Morning breaks, and they're still there. They find footprints leading around to my bedroom window. Someone tried to break in. Just imagining their eyes searching through the darkness, cold and calculating, gives me goosebumps that refuse to fade. My mom's suspicions fall on this one creepy neighbor. He's always been weird, staring at her through his curtains, never friendly. He knows when my dad isn't home because he knows the make of his car. She feels like he is watching us. After that night of pure horror, we decide to pack our bags and leave that spooky house behind. It feels like escaping the clutches of a nightmare. We don't look back, and the memory of that night haunts us like a ghost in the rearview mirror. But we're out of there, leaving the shadows of that freaky place far behind. It started about a month ago. Strange noises, loud enough to pierce through the thin walls of my apartment. At first, I dismissed it as typical city life. Neighbors playing loud music, maybe some late-night construction. But as the nights went on, the sounds became more peculiar, more unsettling. Every night, like clockwork, the odd noises would begin. It started with what sounded like heavy furniture being dragged across the floor. At times, it resembled the low hum of a power drill, and occasionally, muffled voices that weren't quite discernible but hinted at some kind of abnormal activity. I couldn't ignore it any longer. One evening, curiosity getting the better of me, I pressed my ear against the shared wall, trying to make sense of the noises on the other side. The sounds were odd, choppy, a bizarre blend of scuffling, indistinct chatter, and what seemed like the occasional metallic clang. It was unsettling, to say the least. As days turned into nights, my anxiety grew. I found myself staying up, ear pressed against the wall, trying to decipher the cryptic sounds coming from my neighbor's apartment. The lack of any consistent pattern only fueled my unease. Unable to endure the mystery any longer, I decided to confront my neighbor. It was a Saturday night, the noises reaching a peak that made sleep impossible. I hesitated outside their door, my hand poised to knock, but fear held me back. What if I was met with hostility, or worse, an explanation that made no sense? Summoning my courage, I rapped on the door. The noises ceased abruptly, as if the apartment itself held its breath. After what felt like an eternity, the door creaked open, revealing a middle-aged man with messy hair and tired eyes. His gaze met mine, and there was a moment of silence filled with unspoken tension. "What's going on in there?" I blurted out, unable to contain my frustration. He looked at me, a mix of weariness and despair in his eyes. "I'm sorry if it's been bothering you, it's just renovations." Renovations? At this hour? My skepticism must have shown on my face because he quickly added, "It's complicated, but we're almost done. Just a few more nights and it'll be over." The door closed, leaving me standing there, more confused and unsettled than ever. Renovations at midnight? The explanation felt flimsy, like a hastily constructed front. I retreated to my own apartment, the noises resuming as soon as my door closed behind me. The next few nights were a relentless onslaught of clattering, thumping, and muffled conversations. Sleep became a distant memory as the strange disturbances continued. Driven by a mix of curiosity and desperation, I decided to take matters into my own hands. Sneaking out of my apartment, I made my way to the fire escape, planning to eavesdrop on whatever bizarre activities were happening next door. As I crouched on the metal steps, the sounds became clearer, revealing a gruesome scene of what did not seem like a construction site within the confines of the apartment. A flickering fluorescent light revealed a makeshift operating table surrounded by tools and equipment. The man I had spoken to earlier was there, clad in worn-out scrubs, directing a group of individuals in equally shabby attire. It looked like a disturbing underground operation. I watched in shock as they worked feverishly, their movements purposeful and grim. The metallic clangs were the chilling sound of instruments meeting bone. The muffled voices were the hushed conversations of those engaged in something illicit and grotesque. My heart pounded in my chest, fear gripping me as I realized the true nature of the so-called renovations. It wasn't construction, they were altering something, someone, within those walls. The realization sent shivers down my spine because of the twisted reality unfolding before me. My mind raced as I grappled with the implications. Were they performing illegal surgeries, trafficking organs? The possibilities were as horrifying as the sounds that had plagued my nights. I knew I had to do something, but fear rooted me to the spot. As dawn approached, the noises finally subsided. Exhausted and traumatized by what I had witnessed, I stumbled back to my apartment. I contacted the police, providing them with a detailed account of what I had seen and heard. Soon after, the apartment was swarming with law enforcement, uncovering a nightmarish operation that had been thriving under the cover of darkness. The news headlines were surreal, detailing the dismantling of an underground organ trafficking ring. My neighbors, seemingly ordinary people, were arrested, and the apartment was sealed off as a crime scene. The shock reverberated through the community, leaving us all questioning the thin disguise of normalcy that masked the darkness lurking next door.